Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and welcome to Inside News. I'm here with Mike Jones and also Mary Emmerich, who is the Public Information Officer for Oath Keepers. Hello, Mike. Hello, Mary.
Hey, Dale. How's it going?
It's okay.
Hello, Dale.
Hello. So I want you to know, the viewers here, that bandwidth is sometimes a problem in our area, and I may drop out occasionally, or Mike may, or Mary may, but we're going to keep going. We may need to repeat some stuff, just so I'll let you know occasionally, one person's talking and the other person can't hear them, whatever, and just be patient with us. We're doing the best that we can, given the vagaries of the internet and Google. So Mary Emmerich is the Public Information Officer. She's the person that's been chosen by Oath Keepers to carry forth their message. We did make it clear that we'd love to have the principals in the company also, in the organization also speak, especially Joseph Rice. He's chosen to appoint Mary to represent Oath Keepers. She's going to lay the groundwork to what the heck we're talking about today. And so, Mary, let the fireworks begin. Please take it over, Mary.
Well, I'm here tonight as spokesperson for Oath Keepers, and I'm here in the place of Joseph Rice and Bruce McFarland as well, because I have not so far been named in the allegations that are out there, and we'll get into that in a moment. I would like to also explain that Joseph Rice is recovering from a very serious complication from a surgery he had. His family and his friends are working very hard to keep him under doctor's orders and his medical restrictions, and therefore it seemed more prudent for me to be the spokesperson tonight, especially since part of my job is to be involved in all the briefings and the information that both the coordinator and assistant coordinator are aware of. We work as a team in that regard, so that I have the information and can disseminate it when necessary or answer questions. We're on the show tonight because we have a concern about, quite frankly, malicious, inaccurate information that's being given out. We can refute every single allegation that is there with documentation, and we feel it's time that we have our turn to answer some questions about those things. The last two nights you've had one of our former members on your show stating some issues that he has concerns about, and those concerns have been dealt with as far as a chapter, and in fact, Vic, as we know him, had resigned from Oath Keepers, and yet we still carried on an investigation and a look into what these allegations were. I'll talk more about that later. You should be aware that we have retained legal counsel. Legal actions are in place and going forward, not only for the webmaster and the person, probably Lori Johansson, who is responsible for the content of the website. We're also including GoDaddy, who is the host of the website. We have the individuals who are named in this, as well as media people. We are also looking for the person who stole the thumb drive and disseminated confidential information. All of those people are having legal actions taken against them. We have documentation, we have information, and we want to clear this up.
Tell us what it's about. Tell us about the website, please.
Oh, well, wait just a minute. Before she gets to that, can I ask you? You mentioned the name Lori Johansson. You said that she's the one that's responsible for the content of this website?
It appears so. She is the partner of Vic and has a personal relationship with him.
Mm.
Her writing style and other emails that she has sent out seem to lead us to believe that she is the person.
Oh, okay.
who
So
is
you don't
responsible.
you don't have an actual documentation of that then. That's
We're
that's
asking for some, and we have some.
Oh, okay.
That will
And
come
also,
about in the legal action.
And also, now, Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong. It seems to me that I've read at least one posting by Joseph Rice where he said that it's Vika Nikodian who is the author of this, and it sounds like it looked like he had done the writing. Are you now, as Oath Keepers, now slightly changing that focus, Mary?
No, it is a slight issue of definition. If you are a webmaster, you write the code that creates the website, and that is also a kind of content. The content that a viewer would see on the website is another kind of authorship, if you will. And so there are more than a couple of people involved in this.
Mary, I'm going to ask you.
People,
Sorry, Mary, I'm going to ask, sorry about the delay, everybody. Mary, I'm going to ask you to at least briefly set the stage. What website? Some people may be coming in and go, what are they talking about? Would you please just give us at least a brief introduction and then say whatever you have to say. What website are we talking about here, please?
there was a website that was put up called The Principled Patriot. Actually, I don't think "the" is in the title of that website. Which makes allegations and character assassinations against Joseph Rice and against our chapter. It also provides some affidavits, which unfortunately for the people who provided those have a lot of false claims in them, false facts, because they were not privileged in their job position to have the information that would have explained that. Unfortunately, they've chosen to go public with that, and now we need to take action against that. So each and every affidavit that is up there, we have documentation to show what actually happened. And I'll give you an example. In Anita White's affidavit, and certainly an affidavit is based on the information as you know it and your beliefs. The information she had is limited, and therefore, unfortunately, she didn't know the whole story. That can be corrected. So one of the things she states is that we used funds to buy tickets for tough truck shows. That is absolutely false, and we can prove that. We also know the person who did, out of their own pocket, pay for those tickets. And we also have the recipients of those tickets who are now lined up offering to be deposed and to also do affidavits swearing to that fact.
Now, because I've read all these, and when I was reading through the affidavits of the two resigned treasurers, it seems as though it's certain that they weren't privy to some information, but it's also appears to be clear that though they had the title of treasurer, it was really in name as a title only. And so who was acting as treasurer during this whole time? Because it's very, very clear from these that these people were not the functional treasurer at this time.
That's a great question, and I can answer that for you. First of all, it helps to know the structure, leadership structure within our Oath Keepers chapter, which, by the way, is a model that's being used in other chapters. We have our membership, and then beyond that, we have what we call our leadership team, and we use the word team because we're all working together on things. But within that, there's sort of 3 levels within the leadership team. The bottom tier would be what you would call support personnel. The second tier would be more operational persons. And the top tier would be your command structure, especially when you're in an operational situation like the Sugar Pine Mine incident. So the treasurer, webmasters, those would be support personnel. I can best explain that treasurer position as back in the days when I was in Girl Scouts, we had someone who was treasurer, and they took in the dues, and maybe perhaps someone bought treats for the group and they were paid back, so they might have paid out money. But they were not on bank accounts. They did not have access to bookkeeping and records and so on. So,
and
yes,
is that the function?
title.
Is that the function of treasurers and oath keepers and other chapters of oath keepers? Is that the function? Because as I understand it, there are certain liabilities to the position of treasurer.
Well, we have an actual treasurer, and I will be glad to tell you who that is.
Oh, so okay. So there was an actual treasurer, and then this person who was just named the treasurer.
On site, yes.
I
To
see.
do certain jobs on site.
So there was a difference then. There's a distinction between the actual treasurer and the treasurer on site at, say, the staging area.
Correct.
Okay.
So the treasurer that we have is a gentleman that you may recognize. His name is Roy Lindsay. He's a Grants Pass City Councilor. He's a longtime Oath Keeper member. He's part of our communications team, and he is doing our treasury duties.
Okay.
But he's new, isn't he?
New to Oath Keepers? No.
No, new to this treasurer position. In other words, was he the treasurer during the time when the security operation was going on and these other 2 people were in these other positions?
The security operation was run as a separate banking function, so that a bank account was opened for the operation to take in the donations and account for those. So the signers on that to expedite that would have been Joseph Rice and Bruce McFarland. And so then certain parts of those duties were disseminated to people who had the treasurer title, but their duties were quite limited as far as what they were supposed to do.
Mary, you know what we're asking. What we're asking is...
Sorry,
Yeah, I'm sorry about the delay. What we're asking is, who was the treasurer, and it wasn't Roy Lindsay, during the Sugar Pine Mine operation?
Well, I just told you, the person who opened a bank account and was handling that was Joseph and Bruce.
So Joseph and Bruce were acting as the treasurer. They were filling the treasurer function during that time.
Yes.
Okay.
However, those accounts were taken over to be checked and monitored by Roy Lindsay.
Okay, to be sure, then
he was doing the accounting during that time, during the Sugar Pine Mine operation, all the way back to, whenever April.
During the 2-month period that we were doing that?
Yeah.
There was a transition in there. I can't say that I have that date in front of me, but as I said, in the beginning, it started out that way. Bank accounts had to be open. You have to understand that when we got into this operation, things set up rather quickly.
Yes.
And when you're doing a large-scale operation like that, you're literally running a business. And you're using volunteers, which is really a unique situation.
Mm-hmm.
and people offer their skills.
You might be being charitable there, Mary, aren't you?
I'm just, I have worked with a lot of volunteers in my life, yes. And I'm saying it is challenging simply because people offer their help and their skills, and they're generous about that. However, sometimes the job exceeds what they're able to do,
right? Or
they have problems with it for one reason or another.
Yeah, and listen, I think that's something that both of these people who put affidavits up there acknowledge.
I believe so too, and we're not here to try to, make a problem for these people who were generous with their time and what they could give to us. It's unfortunate now that they are coming after damaging our chapter when they don't have all the information about some of the claims.
Well,
so
let me ask. Sorry,
up,
some of the video is skipping in and out for me, and I apologize to everybody. Let me just roll back just slightly, and I'm going to make a statement. You tell me if I'm right or not, and I hope my video doesn't cut out. Okay, and that is for the period of time having to do where most of the activity was surrounding the sugar pine mine operation, the security operation. I believe what you just said was that these two gentlemen, that be Joseph Rice and Bruce McFarland, were the functioning treasurer. There was no third person that was a treasurer, and then you had other people who were called treasurers, but they weren't the actual treasurers. There's only these two guys. There was no third person that was, because we've heard that there was a third person. You're saying that that's not true, and that the current actual treasurer, functioning treasurer, that's been cleared by Oath Keepers is now Roy Lindsay. Is that correct?
I can't agree totally with that statement, Dale. First of all, what I said was, in the beginning, the bank account and treasury duties were with Bruce and Joseph as they opened a bank account and signed on to that. That doesn't mean that they're operating in a vacuum. Part of the management system, and you can look up a NIMS chart that's used by law enforcement and agencies across the United States, and there is a team that has checks and balances within it. It's discussed in briefings. I was involved in those briefings, so I can speak to that myself. Decisions were made about expenditures and reasons for those expenditures. But because of the security operation, that information wasn't disseminated. That was held within a top management group. And therefore, I'm not saying just those two were involved in the decision making, but they were on the bank account.
Okay. Dale,
well, I've been through NIMS training also.
Have we dropped out entirely?
I've been through NIMS training also, and I'm listed as a PIO and some of that as well. So I guess my core question was, in that management system, when you have somebody that has a title, they are responsible for those functions. And the key question I had is that for the period of time during the operation, I'm going to get off this question and go and let you continue your statement. But the key question is, it seems that you had said earlier that during that time period, there were people who were controlling financial operations and et cetera, and you just said there was a team that was doing the double checking, but for what a layperson would call a treasurer, there was no third person functioning with that title of treasurer. It was Bruce and Joseph with a backup team that were watching them. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, Dale. I am missing about half of that. When you ask me a question, the bandwidth is kind of killing it.
Yeah,
here.
well, essentially, I did get what he said, and it's that there was no third person beyond Joseph Rice and Bruce McFarland that were in filling the functional treasurer position during the time of the Sugar Pine Mine operation?
Well, there was, remember, we're not required to follow an exact NIMS chart. And even on that, there's oversight. However, I'm just saying, for example, you can see that as a model. During that time, you had review of the bank statements, of how monies were being spent. You had input into the decision. Then eventually there was a transition to an official person who was taking on that duty.
Well, so now in Catherine Austin's affidavit here, she says, as treasurer, I was both legally liable for the chapter's finances and yet blocked from actively managing them in accordance with the bylaws. So she basically says here the reason why she resigned that position is that she felt that she was going to be subject to liability for which she couldn't answer questions about, and that's what it's. I mean, her affidavit is rather short.
Well, it is, and I would say she may have used that as a reason why she resigned, but in fact, duties were taken away from her, and she chose to resign after her duties were taken away from her.
I see. So is this not correct that the chapters that she or the treasurer would be legally liable for the chapter's finances in accordance with the bylaws? Is that not the case with oath keepers?
Well, Catherine never had treasurer duties. She was doing duties that she called treasurer. Originally, she volunteered to be treasurer. She was not a member of Oath Keepers officially. She never was, it never got far enough that she was put on bank accounts or trained or certified that she was able to do that job. However, when the operation stepped up, we of course wanted her help with some things that we needed done in the beginning, taking in receipts and so on, paying out some monies. But
so
what you're saying
though is if the proverbial crap had hit the fan, she would not have been held liable for anything that happened, as to treasury duties, because she was not the official treasurer. Is that the position?
Well, I think I would speculate, not being an attorney, but you are liable for actions you take, especially if those actions are inappropriate.
Or if your title is the treasurer, and the misdoing is as a function of the treasury duty.
But she was, again, remember, she was the support person treasurer. And I think this is where we get into muddy ground as far as not understanding the organizational chart, not understanding that some of these folks that were involved expanded their own duties and were pulled off those duties. There were problems with those. And we're not here to try and sling mud, but on the other hand, to come out almost 2 months after the operation and now complain about something that they didn't bring up at the time, or they didn't bring up as a concern during the operation, I have a concern about that. I'm wondering what the agenda is. In fact, you can speculate. We've already had emails from people saying, are these people hired by the BLM? Is that what they're doing?
Wow.
So now we're having to answer to those kind of issues coming to us from all over the United States. There is a very active campaign by this group. Excuse me, let me just finish this.
Okay.
There's a very active campaign by this group to bring people to their website. And therefore, people are questioning what their agenda is. Every one of them resigned. Every one of them resigned. They were not forced out, but they also, some of them were removed duties from what they were doing because they were having problems with them.
Speaking of having problems, I apologize again to everybody. I'm having some problems, so it probably sounds like I'm being super rude. I'm not trying to do that. Mary, Mike and I were attending a meeting where where I think it was Joseph Rice that introduced a treasurer. He didn't say this is our functioning lower level third tier treasurer. He just said this is our treasurer. So I hope that you can forgive a couple of lay people who, when someone's introduced as the treasurer, they assume that that person's got the treasurer duties. And somehow she says that she assumed that that's what she was doing as well, and that the reason that she resigned was that she thought that she could potentially be liable for things that she didn't understand that were going on around her. Does that ring true with you? Is there anything I've just said that's false?
Well, I would go back to my Girl Scout example. All of us would be introduced by our jobs. That doesn't mean that people understood that we didn't have the official treasury duty. And I know Catherine, she's a very smart woman. I'm sure she understands that she didn't have access to a bank account or bookkeeping or those other issues. And yet, she did not bring that up to my knowledge, nor was that brought up in a meeting or briefing that I was involved in, other than we had concerns being expressed and something needed to be done about redoing the financial sector.
So
and
Mary,
therefore her duties were changed.
So
she
Mary,
seems unhappy with that.
Right. So Mary, what you're saying is this affidavit of Catherine Austin basically has caught you on your heels here, and that you don't understand. You'd never heard any of this before, and so you're a little bit taken aback at her coming out with this.
Well, I think the appropriate time to raise those concerns might have been when they were happening, not months later.
Yeah, that's basically what I was asking. You never heard about this before, is what you're saying.
Not in this manner. And so that's why.
Wait a minute. What do you mean not in this
who
manner?
are part of the operation are questioning what is the agenda of these people. What exactly do they want? Why are they bringing this up at this point in this way? They are mixing pieces of information and lack of information to paint a very different picture than what was actually going on.
Go ahead, Dale.
Okay, this is a little frustrating for me. Sorry, because my picture keeps freezing up. But Mary, you just said not in this manner. Well, certainly.
Uh-oh. This is one of those things happens sometimes, Mary. It's
you
rare.
Didn't say to you or to Joseph Rice or to anybody else, I'm concerned.
Dale, I apologize. You'll have to start that question over because we only got about half.
Okay.
Speedily knock it out there.
I'm going to try. Okay, so Mary, you were just saying that Catherine Austin didn't bring this up in this way, certainly not on a website. And so are you saying then that during her tenure with Oath Keepers that she did not, to the best of your knowledge, that she did not bring this up with you or with Joseph Rice or with anybody else, that she had questions about her treasurer duties and just resigned?
No, duties were taken away from her. Things were changed as far as the structure of who was doing what. And as a result of that, she made the decision to resign.
Can you speak about why the duties were taken away from her?
At that point in time, she did not bring up concerns. She never spoke with me about concerns. It was never brought up at a briefing that she felt like she was going to be liable for some problem that was out there. And to me, again, I know she is a very capable, smart woman. It would have seemed appropriate to attempt to do that. We all did the best we could in this circumstance. We appreciated every person that was there. We have a very small number of disgruntled people out of the hundreds of people that volunteered for this operation. And honestly, I have to commend Joseph for leading so many volunteers in this manner. I challenge anybody to try and do that without paid staff on hand,
right,
without equipment and facilities to run that kind of operation.
Yeah, you know what, Mary,
so
there isn't
people to be disgruntled. Maybe is not unexpected.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're going to get a percentage in any group of people. Now, there isn't any question that because Dale and I went there. That operation was being done on a shoestring, at least to begin with, and these were overworked and underpaid people. There was no question about that. There was quite an effort to maintain a security operation 24/7 for weeks. There isn't any question that is enough to. And listen, outside of a normal operation where you have a business. And you're trying to run a hamburger shop or something. The level of stress involved with people that are working long hours and eating and sleeping irregularly, you're going to have probably a higher level of people on edge, no question.
Well, but
that's correct, and it's unfortunate. We wish that there are people who didn't have these hard feelings, but we're still concerned about the attack and the inaccuracy of facts that are being put out there.
Go ahead, Neil.
The question more centers around the idea that 2 or 3 people over a period of time that felt that they were handling treasurer duties, that they've resigned. And so it's not so much about the security operation, it's more about, do you have any clue why the people who were related to finance seem to, either 2 or 3 of them, depending on how you count the people, seem to have questions about it. That's all.
Well, I think they created that themselves to a certain extent. It's when they resigned that paints the picture. One person had duties who were changed and chose to not accept the change in duties, apparently, and resigned. A second person continued with the duties, and it wasn't till after the operation stood down that that person ended up resigning. So to tie it to finance is somewhat coincidental. Now they're bringing up questions about that because they're writing affidavits and they're bringing up everything they can think of, so to speak.
If you had to speculate as to motive, as to why somebody would do that, what do you come up with there, Mary?
Well, I think we have a concern about what that motive is as well. And that's the questions that we're getting from other people. Why would you attack someone who did such a great job of leadership and misuse the facts by putting the puzzle pieces together in the wrong way? Why would you do that? That is a character assassination. What is the agenda behind that person? When Vic was on your program, he spent quite a lot of time with his computer issues and talking about some fake trial that we had. That's absolutely false. And actually, he blasted out emails. We have quite a stack of them that he sent out to the leadership. He was asked repeatedly to give documentation and always deflected or avoided the question and brought up another issue. When he got answers to those issues, he continued to the point that leadership people asked him to stop sending the emails to them. Remove me from this list. Instead, what he did was to continue to send those and say, oh, sorry, I forgot to delete you from the list. Well, you know what? He's a computer person. It's pretty easy even for me, and I don't complain to be an expert, to figure out who I'm sending emails to. So the fact that he chose to resign and the leadership team still chose to review all the emails and to discuss them and to try to determine what we should do regarding this after he had resigned the chapter. That's pretty generous. So once again, now he's bringing that up. Even though he chose to resign, we made a choice as a leadership team to go through those emails, to have a discussion about it, and we made a determination to accept his resignation. There was really no other way to go. He'd already resigned.
Now, as I glean it from listening to Viken's, basically everything he said a lot of things about a lot of things, but it seemed like the core grievance there had to do with what he considered to be his intellectual property, and that was the application. And from what I gathered, his question, the one question that he wanted to get answered was there a deal between Bruce McFarland and Stuart, I forget the guy's name, at National Oath Keepers, to continue development on this thing and to share profits amongst themselves?
I can answer that.
Okay.
There was a go-to-meeting, you may be familiar with
Sure.
it, where you're in a conference over the computer, and this started out as an issue statewide dealing with a resignation of an officer, and there were people on that call from 4 states. We were unusual because we had our entire leadership team there. And I participated in that, and it lasted, probably 3.5 hours. These meetings tend to be long because there's quite an agenda.
Mm.
During that meeting, Stuart Rhodes, the founder of Oath Keepers, started talking about our leadership team and model. And during that discussion, things came up about doing a website template for other chapters because they were having issues with that. They brought up the application, the emergency application that Vic was developing, and that was discussed. Unfortunately, Vic chose to leave before that discussion came up.
Yeah, he claims he wasn't there, and that when you guys say that he left, that's not true.
Well, that he left because there are probably 8 witnesses to the fact that he was at Joseph Rice's home, and he chose to leave. He was, for whatever reasons, that's his personal reasoning, but he left before that discussion took place. Stuart Rhodes, during that discussion, said he was interested in the website development. During that time, Bruce said that he would be willing to put up $15,000 for the development if he would be paid back for it. And Stuart said, absolutely, this should not come out of your pocket. You should be paid back for that. It was not a case of him gaining 1 penny extra from this. That was not discussed. As far as the responder app that Vic was developing, Stuart said he wasn't interested because there were too many similar apps to that. I know Vic was allowed to present that at several meetings, and he's the only one who's been able to do that with a private product at meetings. And several of the Oath Keeper members did invest in that. I don't know what the status of that project is, but it's not something that has been taken from him. It's his product. Oath Keepers National was not interested in that product. So it's not being developed in another way in any case.
One of the things, Mary, one of the things that Viken said over and over and over again was how anxious he was to speak with Stuart Rhodes, that he really had something he wanted to bring up with Stuart Rhodes, that he wanted to talk about his intellectual property. So a real point of disconnect here is him saying that, and then it turns out that here was a chance, perhaps, for him to speak to a Stuart Rhodes on a go-to-meeting meeting, but he left. What's up with that?
Well, what is up with that? Unfortunately, I'm concerned with either Vic's memory of what went on or his understanding that you have to be there if you're going to be part of the discussion. Now, I do know that when Stuart Rhodes was with us for a while during the operation, Vic wanted to try and get some of his time, but he always seemed to want to have somebody else arrange that. Stuart, we don't control Stuart Rhodes. He was a visitor there. How he spends his time is up to him. He's a busy man. He does a lot of interviews. Even while he was there at the operation, he was on the phone doing live interviews just like this one. So it wasn't our job to arrange that. I know he did send an email to Stuart Rhodes. I have been told that Stuart did read that. He is an attorney, and he felt that Vic didn't have any standing and basically deleted the email. End of any involvement from Stuart Rhodes. That was not our decision. We didn't have a part in that. Stuart Rhodes just informed us that's what had happened.
Well, Mary, we've been asking you a number of questions here, and we did ask
Sounds like I lost you again.
We drop out again there. Start that one over, Dale.
Mary, we've been asking you a number of questions. We did ask Viken a number of questions, but I want to make absolutely sure that the next 10 minutes, 12 minutes or so, you get a chance to speak on your own with no
with no interruptions, except for an occasional dropout.
Okay, during the next 10 minutes to 12 minutes.
Must be the weather.
During the next 10 minutes to 12 minutes that you get a chance to say whatever it is you want to say without us asking you questions as we did to Viken. So go ahead and just tell us during the next 10 to 12 minutes whatever else that you want to be sure that everybody understands. Okay, we'll try to be quiet and just listen.
First of all, Oath Keepers has become a very important part to our community. We don't want our reputation to be damaged in any way. It's very important to us. We do a tremendous amount of community service that we don't get credit for a lot. We're now not out there to get credit, but we want to be continuing to do that work. This morning and on Tuesday, we built ramps for disabled people. I first met some of the Oath Keepers when they worked on one of my projects. 12 of them showed up every Saturday and Sunday for 12 weeks building a Blue Slide Project playground for disabled children. They made a commitment. We have an honor guard. We do work at the fairgrounds. You will see us at veterans stand-ups whenever they occur. We do community service. You need help, call us. We have mentors in the high school. We've given out 4,000 constitutions in the last year, And we would have given out more, but we ran out. We keep ordering more. We keep getting asked for them. So in addition to that, we do overwatch of what's going on in the community politically, as Dale and Mike are familiar with, because they often see some of our members at board meetings or at other political gatherings around the community.
No question about it.
When we were asked to help with an issue in our community, an issue that, by the way, could have been handled by the sheriff, we stood up and did that. Everybody dropped what they were doing. There were people who took vacation time. There were people who gave thousands out of their own pocket to keep that operation going before donations started coming in. We're still paying bills related to that operation. We have a drive to make a difference in this world in a good way. So to have our name taken apart in this way with false accusations is really troubling. And we're concerned about that, and we're concerned that these people are getting a platform for that when it could have been resolved at the time. Somebody would have been assigned to deal with it, or they could have written a letter at the time. So it's troubling. And yet we're trying to be as careful as we can about not doing the same thing back. We appreciate the generosity of these people. Every one of them contributed something to this operation, and they did it because they believed in the cause. We are very sorry that they had some bad feelings at the end of it, but this is a very poor way to express those feelings. What I would like to see happen is to not have to settle these things by going out and hiring an attorney, by taking legal action against everybody because of the damage they have caused. Someone actually stole confidential information. We could only speculate on who that is. That person knows who they are. And unfortunately, they have committed a crime. False accusations can be cleared up more easily than that one. So I would advise them to tread carefully. I appreciate that you gentlemen are allowing me some time to try to clear up some of those facts. We have always felt that you two wanted transparency in the stories that you told. To be honest with you, and I've told you this personally, we were a little disappointed that things weren't checked more carefully, but every media person has a different way at approaching this story, so I can't fault you on that. You did give us an opportunity to come forward and discuss this. Sometimes it's not real useful to go through things point by point, but I can understand why there's an interest in clearing up some of the things that were on the list. The great joy of this group of Oath Keepers are the individual people that are there, that contribute their ideas, that have a common purpose for this community. That's what I want to see continue. This week alone, I've received 3 emails from people asking me how they can join our chapter. I received a phone call from a gentleman who said his son had just returned from Afghanistan. He was looking for a group for him to join for support because he had a tough time over there. And I said, I can assure you he'll be welcomed in. No questions asked. He'll be around people who understand what he's been through. We can put him to work, which is sometimes the best medicine. So we want to continue to be there. We want to continue to get new members. And we appreciate those people who have stood by us and supported us. Both Joseph and Bruce and I have just been overrun with phone calls and emails and text messages, and we're very, very grateful for that. We know we're on the right track. In closing, I'll just share with you that our fight with the BLM and even the Forest Service is not over yet. We are actively engaged in doing investigations about cases that came to us during the operation, and it's very troubling to see what's going on within those agencies. Sugar Pine Mine is not an isolated incident. And so we have a lot of work to do yet. And that work is going to be published soon. Where some of us are working on that full time right now. And as one of the people doing that, I can say we need to keep doing this work. Somebody needs to watch the people around us and make sure they're following the law, they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Agreed. You know, if no one knows what would have happened had the Oath Keepers not been there to intervene at Sugar Pine. If we would have just had another burned cabin or worse, and so there isn't any question that the Oath Keepers have performed a valuable service there.
That's pretty clear.
And thank you for that, Mike.
Right. And we remember that it was the mine owners who asked you to step in, and you did.
And we did. And we weren't alone. And that's the thing that's remarkable. We had almost 800 people join us in that cause. It's a pretty remarkable number.
Mary, one of the things that you said early on, and thank you, I hope that you feel that you got your say this evening. One of the things you mentioned early on is that there were a number of people who need to be aware that they could be potentially liable, and that you've talked with legal counsel. You mentioned something about media. Well, of course, I paid attention to that. Is there anyone else in media that's been doing any part of this story?
Well, once something is stirred up, and I should back up and say the Oath Keepers are of national interest continually at this point in time, and especially our chapter. So when something comes up about Oath Keepers, there's a lot of interest. And unfortunately, we have had some problems with some media that aren't very honorable. They don't have much integrity, and those people have a tendency to want to join into character assassination as well. And if they do it in a factless way, then they could be complicit in this.
Well, one of the things, Mary,
as I said,
sorry. I apologize. One of the things that we do, that Mike and I do, is we review media. I don't know of anyone else who does that in this area. So if you at now or sometime in the future would like to tell us who the other journalists or media are that are covering this particular story, we can check out what they're saying. And we've shot other stories full of holes, and rightfully so.
Right, and actually during the Sugar Pine Mine operation, we found media over in the UK that was mischaracterizing what was happening at Sugar Pine. So it's
it was a worldwide story.
Yes, it was.
And there are people who are continuing to follow that. We sort of know who we're watching because they have a separate agenda, and whether they're going to be liable or not, they are certainly being looked at to see what they're going to do. I have no problem with media stories and perspectives, but let's do some fact-checking and be above board on what we're looking at. Be careful about what you write.
Well,
and be careful about what you believe. And I don't mean that you, Mike, and Dale.
Okay.
I mean the community of media in general.
Well, I talked with the fellow at the London Daily Mail personally and set him straight about what we knew to be the facts so that they weren't ending up publishing things any longer after that that were incorrect. Do you have any local media at all that are paying attention to this story? What's been the reaction from some of the other media? I've heard that you've done a reach out to them. Are they saying, oh, yes, we're interested, or are they saying, go away?
Well, I think they're interested. I think they're concerned about what's really factual in this case. I'm probably pretty sure that they're watching your program to see what develops here as well. So we have had phone calls, and because those stories aren't published or released yet, you know, we'll see what happens. They may be stories that are explored and go away. But we have two agencies in particular who we had problems with during the Sugar Pine Mine incident, and we're hoping that they won't continue that as well, because this is kind of a muddy road to be walking down sometimes.
And Mary, Mike and I are going to talk just briefly about you behind your back.
Okay.
Mike, Mary's always been completely straight with me. I've never had any problem with communication.
Except for tonight.
Please say that's the bandwidth.
I've never had any problem with communications with her at all. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Yikes.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate that very much.
And therefore, I hope I never have to say that ever again.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the opportunity very much. And, we've worked together before, and we've always tried to share in the stories we have and the information we can put out. So that very much is how we want to work with media. So thank you for that.
Mary, you're welcome to come on again, and with any other things that you may have to say to all of us, okay?
Thank you very much. I'd be pleased to do that.